When we're in a hurricane, we're right in the center of it. We're right in the middle of the worst of the worst of the worst storm. And the only thing you can do is basically stick your video camera out and hang on to something.
It's ironic because I was hanging out with these kids and they turned to me and they said, why are you going to go to Bosnia? We have a Bosnia right here in LA.
The question I think of is, am I an artist or am I a designer? And that's something that, particularly because I work in multi-mediums, I'm plagued with all the time.
I'm not sure what this is back in here, but I've seen it once before down south, and it was a significant tornado, a significant storm. So, whoa! We're getting serious lightning. We're actually in lightning danger now. If you can hear it, you can be hit by it. Woo! I should be filming. What am I doing? Last little while, things have gotten pretty wild. Looks like we may actually see a bit of possibility of tornadoes. And you know what? I'm starting to see something to our north right now. I've been chasing storms for about 7 years now. I got into it about the same time I was able to actually afford a car and be able to get around. And I started chasing like mad. It's been an absolutely wild ride. I'm an artist and a scientist. I've got a science background, but at the same time, I've got a real passion for photography and for video and for writing, actually. I do a lot of writing as well, so all of those things are artistic. So there's a real blend when it comes to storm chasing. It's a very major blend of science and art. It's really quite cool. All right, I'm starting to see what I think is a shelf cloud stretching all the way across here. Now, we're too far away to really see the detail, but I think we're gonna have to move a little further up this road, and this thing's gonna gradually come towards us. And on the other side of that will be the rain, the hail, the lightning, and all the crap. It's awesome. Some of the most incredible shots I've ever seen have come from supercell thunderstorms. I've done black and white shots that look absolutely stunning. I've done color shots that are incredible. It's really, really fast photography because you can't take an hour and set up lights and everything else and get that shot. It's like your camera's out, you go click, 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 and then you change your stop, you change your your composition a little bit, click, 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 and that's what you're doing. And you look at it later and go, hey, I got some good stuff. That's all wind, gust front, pulling all the dirt and everything else up off the field. We're actually driving just about as fast as the wind right now, so you're not actually feeling anything. I've got a still camera, a video camera, but the most important piece of equipment is this. Got to keep this in good running shape. I've got all the stuff on it. This is a cell phone antenna, CB antenna, my ham radio antenna is here. I've got a secondary CB backup, always have backups. Inevitably something's gonna go wrong. TV antenna, scanner antenna, and part of my weather station. Everybody always asks about the toilet right here. It's actually got a sensor inside it that checks humidity and temperature. So I can run basically and figure out exactly what's going on. I'm looking for temperatures change, the winds change, all that kind of stuff. So that's really a fairly important piece of equipment. We're gonna play a little further south, which will probably have the better cells, so we're in for something good real soon. I wanted to have a gallery show for years because people have come and seen my stuff and said, oh my God, that can't be real. And I have to say, yeah, that's totally real. I was there, I was standing there, I was, hey, there it is. And people they're stunned by this photography. It's all about the light, though. That magic hour right at 6, 7 o'clock when the sun's sinking over the plains, and you get these absolutely amazing, amazing shots. All right, here we go. We got right over here, we've got it's starting to bow out on this side. We got a little bit of a lowering down in here. This is solid shelf cloud. It usually looks a little nicer than this, but all that back in there, that's hail, rain, and everything else. So we're about to get into it. But if we want to get hit by something really good, we want to go a little bit south from here. the biggest storm. Everyone always asks me, what's the biggest storm you went through? I always have to say, that's got to be Hurricane Katrina. Right before the hurricane hit, we were in the target zone. We were there. We were ready to go. We actually said, you know, we're going to back off a little bit on this one because it was looking very scary. And my chase buddy, Dave Patrick, calls me up and says, you know, you got to leave. You got to get out of there right now. And he reads off this text of this warning that was possibly one of the scariest things I'd ever heard. Cars will be airborne. Appliances will be airborne. Buildings above 7 stories are coming down. And we're just like, oh my God, we're like going to be in the center of this. And we couldn't leave. At that point, we're committed. When I bring up the photographs of some of the damage and of some of the, you know, what's happened, people can say, wait a second, does it still look like that? And I can say, you know what, it still looks like that. People still are in desperate need down there. And I want to draw attention to that, is that, you know what, just because it's not on the news anymore doesn't mean that this situation isn't still going on. Right now, what you're seeing right here, it looks like really nasty and dangerous and swirl and everything else, but it's actually not too bad. What we're seeing is the warm air riding up into the storm. The cold air is coming down below, and you can actually start to feel that as the wind shifts and starts to come at you right in the face. All right, hang on, I gotta clean my glasses here. This is why I'm in the middle of getting contacts. It's actually very hard to shoot, especially in hurricanes. Glasses fog up instantly. They're just coated. See, that's no good. They're just coated and there's no way to dry yourself. And drying camera lenses at the same time is annoying. I usually keep a baggie sort of tucked into my jacket here, full of you know, chamois and paper towels and everything else. And I take it out, rub, shoot for like a half a second, and you're like, okay, it's covered again. Or you shoot, you know, a little bit like this and try to cover the camera a bit. It's absolutely, hurricanes are wild. It is possibly one of the worst shooting conditions you will ever do. Here we go. Storm photography is tough. Right off the bat, you're dealing with Mother Nature, who does not go by any schedule or by any, you know, like, she wants to mess you up. You know, so yeah, we end up, you know, I've had bus day after bus day after bus day. You drive 18 hours and you get nothing but blue sky, right? And you get up and you drive 18 hours and you get nothing but blue sky. And then you get up and you do it again, and you do it again. And that's chasing. Sometimes, you know, you'll get within 2 miles of the storm. You know, you're almost there, and all of a sudden the storm just gone, dies. You know, then you get into, of course, you know, get lightning dangers. You're out there shooting with a metal tripod in the middle of a field. Not the best combination when there's lightning going around you. It's very, very, very tough. Okay, here comes the rain. Has this become an obsession? Oh my God, yes. In some ways, you know what, it's become a lifestyle. It used to be like a hobby, something you kind of do. This has become, for me, it's a way of living. This cell is definitely collapsing. The rain's really starting to hammer the car pretty good. What happens is you get, when the storms mature, you get a combination of air going up and air coming down. As the cell collapses and dies out, everything's going down. So right now we're in the collapsing phase of the cell, so all we're getting is rain and downdrafts and all kinds of cold air. And yeah, I think that's about all she wrote on this one. Yeah, it's total misconception that we're thrill seekers. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to be out there, and it's an adrenaline rush to be out there in the storms. It's you know, it's when I feel alive. It's when I'm out in the storms. But we're not being stupid. I mean, I'm not going out going, hey, I'm getting a tornado and it'll be really cool, man. No, it's like I'm out there. I want to see these things, and I want to live. You know, I want to be able to keep chasing until, you know, they nail my coffin shut. Holy! I'm gonna lose my hat. There it goes. Never wear your hat this way.
My idea was to take a look at the younger people because there's still a sense of hope. And I know that quite a number of these kids in this juvenile project are really trying to redeem themselves. Actually, I've been asked this question many times, like where do I get the ideas for my work, or where does it come from? It comes from my struggles in my own life. In 1971, I got arrested for drugs and was sent to Rikers Island. And upon my release, I still did not feel that I was ready to change my life. And the second time I got arrested and I went to Rikers Island again, this time for robbery, I decided that I was going to do something to change my situation. When I came out, I started going back to school where I studied graphic arts technology, and then started doing social, in-depth documentary type photography. I remember my first trip was to Vietnam in 1989 to cover the Vietnamese pullout in Cambodia. After that, National Geographic hired me to go to Mauritius, and then from there I went to Mozambique and worked with Kids of War. And in '90 I went over to Romania right after the fall of Ceausescu and decided to look at the institutions that many of the children were being kept in. And Romania turned into a 6-year-long project of going back and forth, and covered many different sort of facets of the institutions there, but then also looking at a good part of life in Transylvania. Well, with the gang project, it was very hard. It was when the riots had broken out, April 1992, and I packed my bags and went right to LA. My idea about Los Angeles was always to kind of do a West Side Story, kind of romantic documentary, a project about gangs, but I was very naive with the whole LA scene. When I got there, I knew no one. I remember getting off the plane that night and being completely overwhelmed, and eventually hooked up with one guy who brought me into his sort of neighborhood, this blood gang, which was in Watts. And I thought it was very interesting to talk to these families in that neighborhood, because back in '65 they had riots in Watts in LA. So I wanted to talk to families who had lived through both riots about what had changed or what had gotten worse. You got to understand how this gang thing works. I mean, there are over 1,000 gangs in Los Angeles and over 150,000 gang members, But with that said, I'd say 80% of the time within a gang, there's nothing going on. It's complete boredom. People just kicking back, drinking beer, listening to music. So one night we're just kicking back with, it was a night of a truce. We were kicking it with Evergreen. And one car came by and they said, F you Evergreen, and they said F you back, which is classic sort of disrespect to each other. And then I saw another car was coming up like this, real slow. And these black guns came out of the window, and it's at night, so things were happening very quick. And then as close as we are here to the curb is as close as that car came. And that's when the bullet fire just started happening very fast. It's not like in the movies, all this big bang bang. It's very kind of fast and quiet and very low kind of pop, pop, pop. And I had a little fire hydrant I could creep down next to, and I did. And then one of the guys took 5 bullets, and he actually lived. But that was probably a real earth-shattering night. It's ironic because while I was in the middle of my gang project, I got an assignment to go to Bosnia. And that day I was hanging out with these kids, and they were throwing bottles at the school bus. And they turned to me and they said, why are you going to go to Bosnia? We have a Bosnia right here in LA. So I kind of stuck it out. I would hope that, they feel that, someone took care, because I remember one individual gang member, Scoop Dog, who actually was killed. He said to me, why would anybody want to see a book about us? I mean, who cares about us? And I just kept on saying to him, I think it's a very important book. And since I made this book, 11 kids are dead. So I hope that that they get something out of it.
Total sentence imposed is 10 years in the state prison.
what sparked this particular project was, it's really just an extension of the LA Gang Project. I mean, all those kids that I was photographing, they're in those gangs. Many of them are just being arrested and thrown into jail for a variety of charges. So my idea was to basically look at what happens to these kids. And not just to look at them on the inside, sitting behind bars and trying to sort of deal with their lives that way, but what happens to them when they come out. The work does affect me, and so a way for me to deal with overwhelming issues of the day is I write them down. I keep journals. And then I sort of try to process my experience with them by writing my own feelings next to their stories. And it helps me sort of get through some of the darkest hours. It's a book that really needs to be seen right now, that it's an issue that is not going to go away. You know, I just hope that people see the images and start to rally around the issue of incarceration. I mean, it's just not I don't think it works. So my idea was to take a look at the younger people, because there's still a sense of hope. And I know that quite a number of these kids in this juvenile project are really trying to redeem themselves and really trying to change themselves. They may not be the most well-equipped, but they are trying. I mean, I've got kids that, you know, went from kidnapping to writing, and some of them are working as journalists, and some of them are raising families, and others are working, and some are still one foot in the street, some foot out of the street. So these are our children. These are America's children.
Looking right at me, that's good. But lean your chest more towards the camera and look right into the camera, yes. As a visual artist, I've always been very strongly inspired by nature, and I find that coming from a rural environment, I've always had a strong connection to nature. So because my biggest influences are color and texture, I get very inspired by just seeing nature. You know, seeing the colors and the textures in blooming flowers, or taking a walk in the woods and experiencing nature in bloom. I like to work very minimalistic when it comes to photography and the equipment. I find that the more professional photographers get, the more hung up they are with this is my equipment, these are the only conditions I can work within given my camera body, my lenses, my lighting, and I like to try and break barriers, no matter what art form that I'm working in, but particularly with photography because it is so technical by nature, and I like to try and be able to break free from that. Chin up. Yes. But try not to smile, serious. I'm a very passionate, creative person. So to me, it almost doesn't matter what form of expression I'm using to create my art or to demonstrate my feelings. It's just very important for me to get that creativity out. Right now I'm trying to get some really high contrast fashion shots for my summer jewelry line. So the whole theme of this summer collection is really bright, punchy, summery colors. Think of Kool-Aid, almost. I'm trying to get some shots of a model who's very young, youthful, edgy, has a very fashion-forward look. So the whole purpose of bringing my model down to the river is to create both a fresh and summery look by putting my model in nature and contrasting these bright, punchy, bold, almost synthetic looking colors against a very natural backdrop in order to really make the jewelry pop. Okay, keep your legs as far apart as you just had them. Exactly, with your right foot as close to the edge as you can. When I start a photo shoot, it's always my priority to make the model comfortable through whatever means necessary. I find that when the model's not comfortable, that totally transcends through the photo. Okay. With the jewelry, I think there's more an element of wanting the pieces to look one of a kind, thinking of what would look absolutely stunning on any woman, and what looks a little bold or fresh or just a little bit different from, you know, the average jewelry you'd see someone wearing walking down the street. I just love seeing beautiful color combinations, bright and bold color combinations. And I like to think that regardless of what the medium is that I'm working in, that I'm able to come up with unique or one-of-a-kind combinations of colorways. On a personal level, I prefer to do portraiture when it comes to shooting people because, as I said, I like candid shots and I like to be able to capture people in their element. And also, when I have them one-on-one, I'm able to really highlight elements of the photography that I like to focus on. Again, getting back to my personal preference as an artist of loving color and texture, which when I'm doing shoots for a magazine or a newspaper or any of my clients, really, I can't always focus on the artistic elements that I'm able to as much as when I'm doing independent jobs with people. I would say that when it comes to expressing art in a political way or having any kind of political influence or input on the world through my art, that more so than jewelry or photography, that would be through my painting. And that's because a lot of my painting is both colorful and textured, but also abstract. So it allows me a lot of room as an artist to interpret political views in an abstract way. I find that my whole life I've really been discouraged from pursuing multi-mediums as an artist because people always say, if you want to be a photographer, you can only pursue photography. If you want to do jewelry, you should only be making jewelry. Same thing with painting. And for me, that doesn't really work because I'm such a passionate creative person by nature that working in only one medium isn't enough to fulfill my passion and my desire to just get my creativity out there into the world. I need to work in many different mediums in order to truly express myself.